Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
How many parts? Wait, you're telling me they're adding even more parts? No. You have to be joking, right? Wait, there's now 20 parts? 20 parts? Are you? No, come on. Okay, let me count them. All right. You see, there's part 1, there's part 2, there's part 3, there's part 4, there's part 5, there's part 6, there's part 7, there's part 8, there's part 9, there's part 10, there's part 11. Well, in part 12, they changed the title. Why did they change the title? Okay, no, part 12, part 13, part 14, part 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and just a few hours ago, they added part 20. Ooh, okay, something is going on. We need to pay attention to it. Now, I say all of that, but what I really need to do first and foremost is offer our introduction. Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, June the 27th, 2024. It is currently 10:50 a.m. Central Time. And I am coming to you live from the Theology Central studio, located right here in Abilene, Texas. Now, I know you may be asking, parts to what? 20 parts to what? What are you referring to? 20 parts of what? Well, if you remember, it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I spent the day in my car, driving different places, taking people to certain locations, waiting for them, picking up people, bringing them to a different location. I was doing a lot of driving. And so I grabbed my iPad and I'm like, okay, while I'm driving around, let's listen to some sermons on the Sermons 2.0 app, right? Because that's what we're doing in 2024. So I downloaded a number of sermons. And one of those sermons was entitled, The Coming Middle East War, Part 1. The Coming Middle East War, Part 1. Now, the fact that it said the Coming Middle East War, it immediately caught my attention, right? We're doing a series on eschatology. This is about some coming Middle East war. So I'm assuming it's going to have something to do with eschatology. Maybe I could utilize it in that series. Okay, this should be good. What do they think is the coming Middle East war? When do they think it's going to happen? What scripture do they believe teaches this coming Middle East war? I was intrigued. I hit play on it, and then I was really even more intrigued because the full title was Psalm 83, The Coming Middle East War. And immediately I was like, wait a minute. They believe Psalm 83 teaches of a coming Middle East war. In other words, coming even for us, not for the original author or the original recipients, but really future for us. In other words, it could have been future for them and now be past for us. But no. That Psalm 83 was describing a war that was well beyond the time of the original recipients and the original author. It's future for even us. And I'm like, well, that is, okay, I've read Psalm 83 so many times. Okay, so immediately, as soon as I could, I got here into the studio. I turned on the microphone, and I went live to tell you about the series. And I told you to go listen to it, go download it, and we started reviewing messages. And we found ourselves, at least for me, even more, I went from intrigued, interested to confused and just not understanding because it was a series on Psalm 83, the coming Middle East war. But in the ones we reviewed, they never really talked about a coming Middle East war. They started talking about all kinds of things like rock music and how women dress. And it's like all this, like what? I didn't even understand what was going on. It was so confusing, right? So I decided, you know what? I told everyone, go listen to the series, download the series to see where they go with it. But I'm like, you know what? I don't understand what they're doing with Psalm 83, but we'll start something on Psalm 83. Instead of just getting frustrated or just being, negative, let's be grateful that they put forth a sermon series on Psalm 83. I don't understand what they're doing with it, but instead of being negative, we'll turn it into something positive and we'll put forth our own study on Psalm 83. And we have been working on that. We have reviewed other sermons on Psalm 83, which only added, at least for me, more frustration, more confusion, because they would say one thing and I'm like, well, that's not even the way, that's not even true. And it's maddening. So maddening trying to listen to the sermons on Psalm 83. So I think we've done a pretty good job. So I kind of, I'm still working on Psalm 83 at Victory Baptist Church. We'll be doing more teaching on Psalm 83 next Sunday or this coming Sunday. So I can look at everything and go, okay, it kind of started frustrating. It kind of got confusing, but I think we're making it into something positive. And then I noticed on my Sermons 2.0 app in my feed, well, they keep adding messages to this series. And what's weird is they changed the title. It went from Psalm 83, the Coming Middle East War, for part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then with part 12, they dropped Psalm 83, the Coming Middle East War. And then starting in part 12, it just becomes Psalm 83. Psalm 83, part 12, Psalm 83, part 13, Psalm 83, part 14, all the way up to what they dropped today was part 20. They've done 20 parts. Now, on one hand, man, I'm impressed. I got nothing but respect that a church will use the technology available to them and spend 20 episodes of their podcast/radio broadcast to talk about Psalm 83. I've got nothing but respect with that. For that, I'm impressed. I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing. Everyone should go listen to it. Everyone should follow the series and listen to every single message. Even if I disagree with every word that was said, I'm not saying I do, but even if I did, I still would want you to go listen to it, because that's 20 parts of you hearing someone trying to give their hypotheses, their perspective, and their theory on Psalm 83. Now, and you can also be listening to my discussion on Psalm 83, and then you get maybe two very different perspectives. You may find that frustrating, just as I get frustrated with that. But hopefully through the frustration, by the time it's all said and done, you're going to know Psalm 83 better than you did when 2024 started, right? So hopefully we can accomplish something. But I felt like, so what do I do? I mean, I told everyone about this series, right? Again, it's Psalm 83. Dr. Andy Bloom is the name. And you can just, if you want to find the series, the best way to find the series is just type in the search engine on the Sermons 2.0 app, Psalm 83, the Coming Middle East War. And then you should be able to find it relatively quick. All right. And then you can subscribe to the whole series. And I would challenge you to listen to all of them. But I had to make a decision. So what do I do? I mean, that's the series that started everything. That's the sermon series or the podcast series that sparked our entire work on Psalm 83. So do I just ignore it, or do I say, well, I've already told the people about it? Do I just turn on the microphone and go, hey guys, they're up to part 20. Go listen. All right. Thank you for listening today. I could just do a quick, public service announcement. I could just do a FYI for your information and be done. But, I get frustrated with those kinds of broadcasts, even though I do them, because I just feel like I need to do more. So I thought, you know what? Let's just grab one of them. So I grabbed the audio of one of them. I grabbed part 5. Let's just jump to part 5 and see what they're doing with Psalm 83. We reviewed, I believe, part 1 and part 2. We kind of, at least for me, I became kind of frustrated. So then we just left it. Let's jump to part 5 and kind of see what's going on. I mean, they go 20 parts on it. So I'm fascinated, because if you look at Psalm 83, I don't know, how do you get, I don't know, 20 parts? There's a lot of it that's pretty straightforward. I don't know, there's 18 verses. So they've got more parts than there are verses. Okay, well, that makes some sense, right? Okay, because your introductory material in Psalm 83 could take up 2 messages, right? background, historical context, outline, which we've done all of that. Now, the weird part, though, remember when we started reviewing their part 1 and part 2, they didn't provide an outline, really. They didn't provide any historical context. It was really, their whole approach has been, I just don't understand their approach, but that's okay. That's okay. I don't have to understand it. So let's at least, I just feel like we have to kind of revisit and see what they're doing, right? So we've reviewed part 1 and 2. So that means we're skipping 3 and 4. We're just going to jump to 5. And we're just going to see what's going on. We're just going to see. All right. We're just going to do this in real time. I don't know what's about to happen. Maybe this will be beneficial. Maybe it will not. Do I need to read Psalm 83 to you? Do I need to read Psalm 83 to you? Or do you remember it? Let me read it to you really quick. Psalm 83, a psalm of Asaph, right? Do not keep silent, O God. Do not hold your peace, and do not be still, O God. For behold, your enemies make a tumult, and those who hate you have lifted up their head. They have taken crafty counsel against your people and consulted together against your sheltered ones. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more. For they have consulted together with one consent. They form a confederacy against you, the tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites, Moab and the Hagrites, Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistia, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria also has joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot. Deal with them as with Midian, as with Sisera, as with Jabin at the brook of Kishon, who perished at Endor, who became as refuse on the earth. If I don't lose my voice. Make the nobles like Oreb and like Zeb, yet all their princes like Zeba and Zalmunna, who said, let us take for ourselves the pastures of God for a possession. Oh my God, make them like the whirling dust, like the chaff before the wind, as the fire burns the woods, as the flame sets the mountains on fire. So pursue them with your tempest and frighten them with your storm. Fill their faces with shame that they may seek your name, O Lord. Let them be confounded and dismayed forever. Yes, let them be put to shame and perish, that they may know that you, whose name alone is the Lord, are the Most High over all the earth. Now, we have worked on this chapter, I feel like, for so long. So many hours have been dedicated to it. The main thing I want to continually to point out is Psalm 83 is clearly the psalmist is speaking of a situation that is occurring at that time. There is a threat at that time. So Asaph composes a communal lament to cry out to God that they are confused, they are worried, they are possibly fearful of their situation, and they're asking God to stop being silent, to intervene, because obviously this implies God had been silent. He had not intervened, and they are gravely concerned. And Asaph is kind of like the worship leader, and he composes this communal lament. Now remember, we had a sermon that tried to say that this was fulfilled in 2 Chronicles 20, but that began to kind of fall apart. In fact, the pastor said that King Jehoshaphat called in Asaph. Well, we know that that's just absolutely not true because Asaph was dead. So a lot of the sermons, one of the things that's been frustrating is a lot of the sermons we've listened to on Psalm 83, there's just no way to, look, I just have to say this. They've just been absolutely factually in error. They've made claims about some of these groups or some of these people that was just absolutely not true. Like they completely just fraudulent information. There's no way to get around it. Just fraudulent information. In many cases, they wouldn't even cite a source. And then many of the sources they cited, you're like, where did you found a website called what? What? And then you would just look up any kind of more respected resource and it would completely contradict what they said. It's been very frustrating, right? To hear such bad information. So I don't know what else to do. Like, I know we're focusing on Joshua 1:8 this week, but I feel like we have to go back. I feel like we have to, don't we? Right? I mean, we got to go back to this sermon series that sparked this entire discussion. They're up to part 20. We've got to revisit it. So we're going to go back to their part 5. Again, we reviewed part 1 and 2. We're skipping 3 and 4. We're just jumping to 5. I have no idea what they're going to be discussing. We're just going to jump in and see where we are. Okay. Now, I have listened to a little bit of this. So to be fair, I do know what they start discussing at the beginning. All right. Yeah, which I'm not going to mention, but I put it this way. I was a little confused again. And just like, what? I don't understand. So are you ready for this? Here we go. This should be interesting. I know it's Joshua 1:8, but we're going to interrupt our Joshua 1:8 to go figure out how many parts? Wait, 20? Okay, what's going on? Let's go back to part 5 and see what was happening. Here we go.
Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. This is Gary Neron welcoming you to the Lamp and Light broadcast, coming to you from the studios of Central Baptist Church in beautiful Ocala, Florida. Lamp and Light is a ministry, taking a book of the Bible verse by verse, teaching as it is to men as they are, without compromise or apology, speaking the truth in love, and our purpose is to give the lamp and light to all. Yesterday in our study of Psalm 83, Dr. Bloom was explaining where the word rapture came from.
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, you should subscribe to them. You should follow it, right? I love the fact that this church has basically a radio program. They have their own studio, and they're putting out this content day in and day out, where they're going through basically, scripture. I love that. I got nothing but respect for that. I may disagree with some of their perspectives, but I just love when churches are using technology that is available to them to get their teaching, to get their perspective, to get their hypotheses on scripture out there so that the rest of us can be challenged by it. I mean, look what they've started. By using their technology, they've started our lengthy discussion on Psalm 83. So I've got nothing but positive to say about everything that they're doing. My only issue is I just don't understand from a hermeneutical perspective, from an exegetical perspective, how they're handling the text. And when they just tell me that we're getting ready to talk about the rapture, I'm even more confused. Where is the rapture in Psalm 83? I don't understand. I don't think I've heard a sermon yet where I understand what in the world they're doing with Psalm 83. I'm just as frustrated as I am with all the sermons on Joshua 1:8, it may be even more confusing and confounding. At least Joshua 1:8, that's how almost at least all the sermons are in agreement that they all handle it basically the same way. I think the way they handle it is a travesty, okay? But at least there's consistency. What frustrates me with Psalm 83 is this pastor says, no, it was fulfilled in 2 Chronicles. And this pastor says, no, it was 1967. No, it was 1948. No, it's coming. And it's wait, what is happening here? When you have a pastor telling you that King Jehoshaphat called in Asaph, well, that's frustrating considering Asaph was dead, okay? That's really frustrating. So when they start saying, well, this represents this country, and you start looking up things like that is not even that's not even a little bit accurate. Those things drive me crazy. So now, how did they get to a discussion about the rapture in Psalm 83? I am so confused. But hey, let's learn a little bit about the rapture. I know in eschatology, there are those who hold to one and there are those who don't. I'm not here to get into a rapture debate. I'm trying to get into a hermeneutical discussion. How in the world did you get to the rapture in Psalm 83? That was currently talking about a conflict that was happening at the time of Asaph, who was the worship leader mainly during the time of David into the reign of Solomon. So I don't know. He's talking about a situation at that time. I don't understand. All right, but here we go.
Let's resume with that discussion today. Now, here's our teacher and pastor, Dr. Andy Bloom.
Foundation for the Bible stands.
And I do find it, look, their intro is awesome. Their intro is well produced. Whoever produced their intro, it's great. The voiceover is good. The music is good. And the Bible says, ladies and gentlemen, that should be all you care about, is what does the Bible say? And we determine what the Bible says by the words that are used. And we understand the words that are used, first based off their historical context, then their textual context, and then the actual, just the way you understand words, definitions, and how they're structured and put together. So I love that the Bible says, as the song goes there. That's amazing. We should care about what the Bible says. What I am perplexed by is how everyone goes to Psalm 83 and seems to find something that I don't think the Bible actually says. That is where I'm confused. But let's see what happens here.
But there is a tribulation that is going to come upon this earth. So now the Christians will be caught up in what we call is the rapture. Now, I've had men try to argue with me and say, well, the word rapture is not in the Bible. And where the word rapture comes from, you see, it's actually, in 1 Thessalonians, we read, they'll be caught up. Caught up is a Greek word that has the idea of snatched out. The Latins tried to change things a little bit, and so they used the word raptura, which is the same definition, though, of caught up. It was just like they're trying to translate it into their language. But, no, it's not in English rapture, but it is got the right terminology, caught up. Because we're caught up. How? In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trump shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible. Yes, a rapture is coming. It could be at any moment. As a matter of fact, I'm recording this right now, but to be quite honest with you, here it is, the second to the last day of February of 2024, and there may be people out there that will never get to hear it, or they'll hear it, but we've been raptured out maybe the day before, the day after, and you've been left behind, and the station on automatic played that sermon. There will be a war with Russia in that coming tribulation.
Okay, now remember, this is a part of a series on Psalm 83. So we got a rapture, and then we got a coming war with Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, I just don't know what to say. I'm going to let this, obviously we're going to finish this. I'm just perplexed. What has any of this got to do with Psalm 83? I just don't understand. Psalm 83. Remember, this entire thing started because I was confused by when it said Psalm 83, the coming Middle East war. Now it's Psalm 83, the coming rapture. Psalm 83, the coming war with Russia. I just don't, I am just perplexed. Okay, but maybe I'm allowing my past confusion to impact my present listening. So I need to just let this play out, see how this develops, because maybe it's all going to make sense here in a minute.
And not only that, that's at the beginning, by the way, and near the end, a military campaign that is headed towards Armageddon. When the kings of the East, I believe that those are the Eastern countries, are coming in at them. You and I, if you're saved, when I say you and I, I'm saying I'm saved, you're saved, you and I, we will return with Jesus Christ at the end of the tribulation.
It's so, how does Psalm 83 lead to dealing with basic elements of a certain system of eschatology? This sounds like a basically pre-mill dispensational view of eschatology. How does Psalm 83 lead to this discussion? I just don't understand. He's mentioned the tribulation, he's mentioned the rapture, a coming war with Russia, and then a battle of Armageddon with I think he said the Asian and Eastern countries. Okay, what has this got to do with Asaph composing a lament to express the feelings and the situation of the time in which Asaph lived? There's nothing here that makes it prophetic. It's not a prophetic psalm. It's a communal lament. I'm just baffled by this. I think everyone classifies Psalm 83 as a lament psalm, not as a prophetic psalm. I don't think it's predicting, it's describing the emotions and the concerns of a real threat at that time. Now, again, I've given everyone the opportunity. Remember when we were trying to we entertained the concept that maybe Psalm 83, well, some said 2 Chronicles 20 is the fulfillment of Psalm 83, and that started that didn't really make sense. I don't think it really fit, because especially if they said that Asaph is alive during the time, now, which we found out is completely not true, but we tried to connect it to 2 Chronicles 20. I gave everyone opportunity to send me a chart comparing and contrasting 2 Chronicles 20 with Psalm 83, all right? Everyone had that opportunity. I've also given everyone the opportunity to find me a New Testament passage that quotes Psalm 83, or at least references Psalm 83 as it then points to something future. Nobody has provided that as of yet. I've given everyone the opportunity to test these theories and to prove them. I don't get. I mean, we just read Psalm 83. I'm just sitting here looking at this. All right. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe this will all make sense in a second.
And we will actually touch down on this earth with him when he comes, when he's coming back. We call that time when he comes back and actually touches the earth, the second coming. The rapture itself is not the second coming. It's our going to him. But when he comes back with us, that is the second coming, because it's his second coming in human form to this earth. The rapture is not the second advent because, well, we meet him in the clouds. And, we don't touch earth. When we're caught up and he meets us there, he's not coming down touching the earth. He's meeting us in the clouds. Now, we mentioned the Russian war, and we've mentioned the war at the end of the tribulation, the Battle of Armageddon. It is coming. We can see it. You can read your newspapers, you can watch your evening news, and you can just see these things lining up. And you can see news people that...
I just have to say this. I have been hearing that it's lining up, that just look at the news and you can see it it's about to happen, or it's developing. I've been hearing that basically my whole life. Even before I became a Christian, I started hearing things about it. I remember as I was pretty young, and I don't even know how I stumbled upon this book. I wasn't a Christian, didn't really have any connection to church, but I loved to read. So I stumbled upon a book called like The Sign of the Times or something like that. And it was like, hey, all the signs are lining up. And okay, then I become a Christian in the 80s. I heard it in the 90s. I heard it in the 2000s. I heard it in the 2010s. And now it's 2020s, and I'm still hearing it. At this point, it's lined up like 50,000 times. Okay, but all right, that's okay. So now maybe what he's going to do is there's a war with Russia, and then there's a war at the end, Armageddon. Now, is he going to then show us where Psalm 83, this war fits in to these two wars? They've got a war with Russia, and a war at the end. The war with Russia, I think he says, happens before the tribulation, right? So it happens before the tribulation. Where does Psalm 83? Is this an additional war? Where does this fit in? Maybe that's why he's dealing with eschatology, is he's trying to put this in some kind of chronological order. Okay, that could be interesting. I don't know what he would base it off of. I definitely don't know how any of this comes from Psalm 83. But if he believes Psalm 83 is a future war, then maybe he's going to show us where it fits in the chronological map of eschatology. All right, let's see then. Maybe then we're going to get to Psalm 83 here, and this will make some kind of sense.
Doing their best to try to confuse you with it and avoid a lot of the things that are going on. But Psalms 23 deals with yet another war. 10 nations are...
He said Psalm 23, he meant Psalm 83. So Psalm 83 deals with another war. So we got the war with Russia. I'm assuming, it sounds like he said before the tribulation. We got a war at the end, I'm assuming, of the millennial kingdom, if I understand his eschatology correctly. And somewhere there's a third war, and that's Psalm 83. So he's, again, now maybe in some of the early parts he proved it, but in part 1 or part 2, he never really talked about it. But okay, we're just gonna go along, right? Okay, there's a coming war, and Psalm 83 describes it. Let's see where he places it in the chronological order of end time events.
Are listed in this condition. Some have tried to tie this war with the events that have happened in our past, in the past history of the earth.
Okay, now, that is true. Some try to connect Psalm 83 to 2 Chronicles 20, which would be our past. It would be future for Asaph. It would be future for the people, but it would be past for us. Now, I don't know. I don't think that works. I just don't think it works really well. But okay, we can put forth that as a hypothesis. Psalm 83 is a prediction of 2 Chronicles 20. I just don't think it works very well, but okay. All right. And again, why? It's a lament. It's not prophesying something. It's describing a current situation. To me, it would have made more sense if 2 Chronicles 20 provide us the historical context of Psalm 83. The only problem that doesn't work because Asaph is dead before the events of 2 Chronicles 20 happens. So therefore, it would have to be a prediction. All right. Some then say that it was future. It's still past for us, but it's in the more modern past. And he's going to outline some of the other options that are presented by, or by some people at least put forth.
However, those things did not happen in the manner in which Psalms 83 tells us. See, God's not trying to outwit us. He's not trying to mislead us in the Word of God. He's preserved it so that we would have it to know and understand these things. And so in Psalms 83, really lays out for us what God's going to do. Now, I searched.
Okay, now, what's interesting, I think what he's referring to is some people try to connect Psalm 83 maybe to 1967, maybe 1948. So that would be past for us. He doesn't seem to agree with any of that. So he would clearly disagree with the 2 Chronicles 20 theory, the 1948 theory, the 1967 theory. And I don't know how prevalent 1948 or 1967 would be prevalent, how prevalent those theories would be. But he's rejecting any theory that puts it past for us. He rejects. Now, what's interesting is I don't understand why there's a theory at all. Why can't Psalm 83 simply be a communal lament, which it's classified as at least classified as a lament? Why can't it simply be a lament of the psalmist lamenting to God based on a current situation that was happening at that time? Why do we have to look to any future anything? Why do we have to make this prophetic? What is there in the text that makes us think, oh, this is predicting something. Why wouldn't we just say this is describing something? It's not predicting something. Like that's what I need. Like if all the arguments are this is predicting this or this is predicting this, and everyone's got their theory on what it's predicting, why is there so much a desire to make this a predictive or prophetic psalm and not simply a descriptive psalm describing the emotions and the concern and the fear and the trust in God in a very difficult circumstance that is outlined for us in the very psalm itself? I just don't understand.
In preparation of Psalms 83, I searched authors of the present day, authors of times past, perhaps even a century past or more, to search this out, to prepare for this passage. There are some very, very interesting passages, yet a great, I guess you might just say, a great array of ideas. And sometimes people believe, well, I've got to come up with an idea to explain this. We want people to understand it, not be confused. Well, I can understand that. We don't want to confuse people with our preaching. But we don't want to change the story. We don't want to change what God has said. Try to help people think what we think instead of what God is trying to tell them there. And so we need to do what God says and take His word accordingly.
What's fascinating is even he admits there's all kinds of theories. All kinds of theories from the past to the present. Why? My thing is, why is there so many theories? Psalm 83, Asaph composes a lament that says, God, we need you to act because we have a current situation. This is the current situation. These enemies are coming together to wipe us off the face of the earth. The enemies are listed for us. Edom, the Ishmaelites, Moab, the Hagrites, Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistia, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria has also joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot. They are clearly listed. All of those enemies that are listed would have been present at that very time. Okay, so the text and the language it's using things describing the present. It's describing enemies that would have been enemies at the present. There is nothing here that makes me like, I need 15 theories to figure out the when. The when is at that time. I said, this is what I'm so confused by. How did this become so convoluted and so complicated? Like if we can't figure out Psalm 83, ladies and gentlemen, what hope do we have to figure out literally anything in our Bibles? I am so perplexed by this.
Always the Word of God, its context will agree with what it is saying. Okay? So, this chapter is showing for us a war that could happen before the rapture or immediately after the rapture.
So he said the context will agree basically with the content. Well, the context, I just don't. And so the next thing you know, that this is talking about a war that could happen before the rapture or immediately after the rapture. So wait a minute. So is it before the rapture? We don't know. We just know it's future. On the basis of what? Why does this have to? I don't understand. Maybe he's getting ready to make it make sense, right? Maybe it's getting ready to make sense because, you know, he thinks this is going to be before or after. I mean, that's it could be before the rapture, right? Okay. All right. Let's just see what happens.
Before the tribulation. Now, remember, the tribulation does not start with the rapture. The rapture is before the tribulation. But the tribulation starts when the Antichrist, the world leader, other places he's called the beast, and that's probably a better name than Antichrist. He is Antichrist, but he's the beast is the way he is referred to more often. But it confirms, that beast confirms a covenant with Israel. And that will start the 7 years that could be the day of rapture. It could be a few years after the rapture. We don't know. The Bible doesn't give us clarity on that, but we do know that's what happens. And this war could happen before the rapture. After the rapture?
Well, if this war could happen before the rapture, then it could have happened during the time of Asaph, because that would be before the rapture, right? It could have happened in 2 Chronicles 20 because that's before the rapture. It could have happened in 1948 because that's before the rapture. It could have happened in 1967 because that's before the rapture. So once you say it could happen before the rapture, then why does it have to be future for us? Why couldn't it be past? Because that would still be before the rapture. Once you make it like, well, it could happen before the rapture, then it could have happened in our past. It could happen in our present, or it could happen in our future, but that just opens up the window. It could happen it could have happened. Like, I don't even know how that narrows anything down. Or it could happen after the rapture. Well, if it happens after the rapture, well, then we know it has not occurred yet. But if you don't know if it's before or if you don't know if it's after, then to me, this is just why, like, why would you say the Bible? I don't understand. Why wouldn't you just say it is describing a situation at the time of Asaph? I don't. Okay. Maybe it's going to make sense. Maybe. Okay. At least he's getting to the actual concept. Remember, in part 1, part 2, I was getting frustrated because they never really actually discussed it. At least now in part 5, we're getting somewhere. Now we have at least something that we can be like, okay, here's his hypotheses. Here's my hypotheses. My hypotheses now is, we tried the 2 Chronicles hypotheses, right? And because the pastor said that that Jehoshaphat called in Asaph, I was like, well, if Asaph was alive at the time, and we found a couple of other resources that tried to make the same claim, I was like, well, then Psalm 83, the historical context is 2 Chronicles 20. That makes it simple. That fixes all of the problems. But then, well, we found out all the pastors and resources saying Asaph was alive was only off by a few decades. Okay. So then that completely fell apart. So now my hypothesis is simple. Psalm 83 is describing a situation at the time of Asaph. Figure out when he lived. This event that's being described occurred during that time. And he composed a communal lament for the people to lament to God based on the situation they were currently experiencing. The end.
It'll be before the tribulation. That's this earth.
Okay, so it sounds like he's saying it could be before the rapture, it could be after the rapture, but it will be before the tribulation. So it could be before the rapture, after the rapture, but before the tribulation. I hope that narrows it down for you.
And what some people are trying to do on this earth. Now, the war spoken of in our text is different than the Russian coalition that comes at the beginning. Notice first the verse. Let's look at the identity of this coalition of nations. Okay, of nations in verse 6 and on through verse 8, I believe, because the nations all surround Israel. Verse 6 shows us Edom. The geographic location of Edom should be what the world is trying to identify as, well, that of the Palestinians.
Okay, now wait a minute. He's connecting the geographical area of Edom to the Palestinians? All right, we got to do a little bit of work. All right, so a couple of things here. First of all, at this time, when Asaph writes Psalm 83, Edom obviously were the descendants of Esau, who held a long-standing rivalry with the Israelites. That places them obviously in that very time frame. So we don't need to look for them anywhere else. But he says Edom are connected to the Palestinians. All right, so I'm gonna do a little work here because I'm a little confused by this. All right. Edom is mentioned as one of the nations in a list of enemies that are conspiring against Israel. Edom was an ancient kingdom located south of the Dead Sea, inhabited by the descendants of Esau, the brother of Jacob, Israel. The Edomites were historical enemies of the Israelites. So again, they fit perfectly in Psalm 83 in the historical context. I don't know why we're looking, but how do we connect Edom with the Palestinians? The modern day Palestinians are not direct descendants of the ancient Edomites. The Palestinians are an Arab people who live in the region for centuries, and their identity is linked to the broader Arab and Islamic culture. The connection between the ancient Edomites and modern Palestinians is not a direct ethnic or historical line of descent. When interpreting biblical passages like Psalm 83, it's important to consider the historical context of the ancient nations mentioned and their relationship with Israel at that time. The mention of Edom in this psalm refers to a specific nation that was hostile to Israel in antiquity rather than a direct reference to a modern ethnic group like the Palestinians. So there's like a warning, don't do that. He just immediately connected Edom to the Palestinians. He did so by the geographical region? Like, how do you accomplish this? So I'm going to do some searching here. I'm doing live research on the air because I'm perplexed. I am so confused by so much of this, right? Because we've had other pastors make claims about the Palestinians or the Philistines. And like some of the things we've looked up other things and just was absolutely not true. Now here, I don't know how you're connecting Edom with the Palestinians. I don't understand this. All right. So, I'm going to say, what was the geographical location of Edom? All right. I'm going to do a search for the geographical region of Edom. Edom was an ancient kingdom region located in the southern part of modern-day Jordan and extending into parts of present-day Israel. The territory of Edom was situated to the southeast of the Dead Sea, bordered by Moab to the northeast and the Arabian Desert to the south and east. The geographical features of the Edomite region included rugged mountain terrain, deep valleys, rocky landscape. The ancient city of Petra, known for its impressive rock-cut architecture, was a notable city within the Edomite territory. Edom was significant in ancient history, with its people known as Edomites playing a role in trade routes, conflicts, and interactions with neighboring kingdoms and empires such as Israel and Assyria. The region has rich historical and archaeological significance, offering insight into the culture and the civilization of the ancient Near East. It sounds like that's a large area. So I don't know, because it's a large area, if we have Palestinians in that area today, we say that's somehow connected to Edom? Like, I don't understand how you even pull that off. Okay, is the location of the modern day Palestinians connected to the to the, hang on, I'm doing some searching. If I can spell right. I don't know why it won't let me, okay. Why is it doing that? Okay, there we go. Okay. I hate when it tries to do autocorrect. No, I know what I'm typing. I don't need you to correct it for me. But sometimes I do need it to correct it for me. Because the way I was spelling Palestinians, I needed it to help me. All right, okay. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. I'm gonna do a search. I'm just perplexed by this. How do you get Edom to the Palestinians? I don't understand. Okay, the modern-day Palestinians are not directly connected to the ancient kingdom of Edom in terms of direct geographical location. The historical territory of Edom was primarily located in the southern part of modern-day Jordan, while the Palestinians are situated in the region west of the Jordan River, encompassing the West and Gaza Strip. So immediately they're saying there's no connection. This is what's driving me crazy about Psalm 83. Every time I listen to a sermon and I hear a claim and we do 5 minutes of research, we find out that the claim doesn't seem to hold any water, or it seems to be contradicted. While the area once occupied by Edom and the modern-day Palestinian territories are not the same, they are located in relatively close proximity within the broader Middle East region. Okay, well, all right. So I don't understand. I don't understand. He just makes it like, well, Edom is, well, the geographical location is the Palestinians. And then we do 5 seconds of research and I'm like, wait, there's no connection between Edom and the Palestinians. There's no direct lineage, and there's no direct connection even in the geographical locations. The geographical locations were different. They're connected within the broader region of the Middle East. So, I mean, like, I don't understand. Okay. All right. But let's see what else is said here. So do you see how crazy, instead of just saying, well, Edom were enemies of Israel at the time Psalm 83 was written, so therefore it's describing a current situation. Somehow we're going to take Edom and then try to connect them to the modern day Palestinians? But based off what? Some wild speculation? I don't understand that hermeneutic. My hermeneutic would be like, well, we know who the Edomites are. They were an enemy to Israel at this time. We know exactly. So there's why am I looking for something else?
The Ishmaelites are the Arabs. That would include Moab and Ammon.
Okay, so now he says the Ishmaelites are the Arabs. Okay. Okay, I'm going to type it this way. Okay, let's see if we can get some information here. All right, and this may be true, but at this point, I don't know. All right, the term Ishmaelites historically referred to the descendants of Ishmael, who was the son of Abraham and Hagar in the biblical narrative. Ishmael is considered a figure of significance in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, with his descendants traditionally associated with the Arab peoples. In contemporary understanding, the term Ishmaelite is not commonly used to refer to modern-day Arabs. Instead, the term Arabs is widely used to describe the people who inhabit the Arab world, a region that includes countries in the Middle East and North Africa, where you basically have a common spoken language. All right, so while there may be historical connections between the Ishmaelites and modern-day Arabs, the term Arab is more commonly used to denote the people of the Arab world today, reflecting the contemporary cultural, linguistic, and ethnic identities. All right, so there is some connection there, all right? So at least that's not one of those I just have to immediately go, there's no connection. But the Ishmaelites at the time, like if we go back here, okay, hang on, I'm going to go back to my list of all the enemies. Hang on, let me go back because I have them saved here. Where do I have them saved here? Right. So Edom was descendants of Esau, who had a long-standing rivalry with the Israelites, which would have been true in Psalm 83. Ishmaelites, descendants of Ishmael, often associated with the nomadic tribes in the region that would have been present at the time of Psalm 83. I don't need to connect them to anything in the modern time. I just need to know that they were existing at the time of Psalm 83. If they're existing at the time of Psalm 83, and they are known for conflict with Israel, ladies and gentlemen, why am I looking for a future fulfillment when the text screams that it's referring to a situation that was happening at that time
of the Bible days? Verse 7, and today we call this place Jordan. The Hagarenes and Amalek, in verse 7, are the land that is now occupied by Egypt.
Okay, now we've got another claim here. Okay, the Hagarenes, he's using the King James. The New King James has Hagrites. Okay, hang on, let me go here. I'm going to go back to my list of all of them in my own research. All right, so the Hagrites, possibly a reference to a group of nomads or descendants of Hagar. All right, so I'm going to have to just do a little work here, right? Okay, in Psalm, this is all happening in real time. Okay, that's okay. Because what I want to show you is this is almost what you have to, I hate to say this is almost what you have to do when listening to preaching. You almost have to just hit pause and go look things up, because we have demonstrated clearly in our study of Psalm 83 how many of these sermons have just made utterly, completely fraudulent and fake claims, like Asaph being alive in the events of 2 Chronicles 20. I went along with that theory until I kept going, it doesn't make sense. And I kept checking and checking, and then finally going, no way, there's just no way. And then he was dead. So and then all these claims we just saw about Edom, that's just not factually correct. So now we've got the Hagrites that represents Egypt. All right. So, I'm going to put in Psalm 83, verse 6, the Hagrites, there's my autocorrect wanting to fix that because it doesn't like the word Hagrites. The Hagrites are mentioned. Is modern day Egypt the geographical location of the ancient Hagrites? All right, let's see what we can find here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what we can find. The Hagrites mentioned in Psalm 83:6 were a nomadic people, lived in the region east of Israel during ancient times. They are believed to have a tribe or a group of people that may have roamed across various areas in ancient Near East. While the specific geographical location of the ancient Hagrites is not definitively known, some historical and biblical scholars have suggested they may have had connection to the region of the Arabian Desert or the area east of the Jordan River. Modern-day Egypt, situated south of Israel, is not typically associated with being the geographical location of the ancient Hagrites. The Hagrites were more commonly linked to regions closer to the eastern borders of ancient Israel rather than territory of Egypt. It is important to note that historical and geographical interpretation of ancient peoples like the Hagrites can vary, and there may not be a precise contemporary equivalent to their specific location in modern times. I know, shocker, right? Maybe because there's no way to connect it to a modern situation is because Psalm 83 was not telling you to go look for their modern connection. It was telling you that during the time of Asaph, there was a confederacy of nations that was coming against Israel, and Asaph composed a communal lament to cry out to God, and this is that lament. It has nothing to do with the future. It had everything to do with that historical setting. But once again, he just said, the Hagrites, that's Egypt. He just says it dogmatically. There's nothing dogmatic about any of this. The Edom situation just seems completely wrong. The Hagrites in Egypt seems at least questionable at best.
We remember that Hagar was from Egypt. And when we see Jebel in verse 7, that would be part of the Jordan. Or it could be part of Lebanon. It's as I would study the scholars, they seem to be divided on.
Okay, wait a minute here. Hagar, he calls Hagar, was indeed from Egypt. All right. So that part is true. Okay, but that has nothing to do with the geographical location of the Hagrites. They were a nomadic tribe that was all over. Okay, all right. And then he says the scholars are divided. Well, the scholars may be divided because nobody should be trying to connect these historical situations to future nations for some, I hate to say it, at this point, I feel that this is accurate, some made up story of a future war that I don't think Psalm 83 has anything to do with.
Which it is. They argue about, well, which is it? Is it Jordan? Is it this other place? Is it this? What is it? But the one thing we can say, and I'll simply say it this way, either way it is, it surrounds Israel. And Israel's fits right into the coalition's desires. The Philistines, of course, represented by Gaza. And we think of Hamas.
Okay, wait. Now the Philistines is Gaza? Okay. All right. Oh, man. I am trying my best to follow all this. Is there any connection between the ancient biblical Philistines and modern day Gaza? All right, let me see if maybe this one is accurate. Oh, okay. Now this one maybe we're on to something here. There is a connection between the ancient biblical Philistines and the modern day Gaza Strip. The Philistines were an ancient people who lived in the region as Philistia, located along the southern coast of modern day Israel and the Gaza Strip. The city of Gaza was one of the 5 primary cities of the Philistine Panopolis, along with Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath. There was significant center of Philistine culture and power during biblical times. All right. So, hey, that one, we actually have connection, ladies and gentlemen. We actually have a connection. This one seems to be accurate. Great. But guess what? If I just go back to my list of everything I studied, let me go back to my list. Hang on, if I can find all my notes. I got my notes scattered in so many different places. Philistia, inhabitants of the Philistine region, known for their conflicts with Israel throughout history. Guess what? They would have been an enemy of Israel during the time of Psalm 83. Okay, so why are we connecting it to something modern when it was clearly, this is describing a situation at that time. There's not been given any textual justification for this wild speculation and this attempt to connect it. And so far, this is the only connection that seems to have any ground and possible fact.
It's interesting that rarely do you have a day go by that you hear something not going on in that area and in attacking Israel. And the world, its media and so forth, does everything to make Israel at fault, even though these people come in and they murder babies in front of their parents. They take videos of killing them. And the world is supposed to agree that they're right, even though they use their own children and other children to be their blocking areas so that when the enemy is shooting, they take all the bullets. They take all the things, these children and women. And just telling you what kind of men they are, if we can call them a man. So, the early part of this 70th week that Daniel calls it, that, well, Israel just basically traded over 1,000 terrorists for one of their soldiers back in 2010.
I have no idea what any of this has to do with Psalm 83. I am literally, it's about a future war that could happen before the rapture, could happen after the rapture, but before the tribulation. Now we're talking about current situation in Gaza and the Palestinians and Hamas, and I don't understand. I don't understand.
Just to get them back. And a lot of people said, man, they should not have done that. Many of these, well, I guess you might say these terrorists, are guilty of murder.
This is your radio pastor, Pastor Andy Bloom, saying...
And that's the end of part 5. The good thing about part 5 is now we're actually getting into, well, I can't even call it I can call it. It's their justification for saying Psalm 83. This is the justification we have heard. I'd have to go back and listen to part 3 and 4 to see if I missed something. All right. So maybe I missed something, but the justification provided in part 5 is this. These nations listed in Psalm 83, 6, 7, and 8, based off wild speculation and many cases incorrect understanding, these nations are connected with modern nations. Therefore, Psalm 83 is talking about a future war. But again, if you say it can happen before the rapture, then why is it necessarily future for us? It could have already happened. In fact, I think this war did in Psalm 83 during the time of Asaph, when he composed the lament to express the emotion of that time. So that's even confusing. But I mean, that's such a wild, and look, if you're going to connect it to modern nations, you've got to be 1,000% accurate in all of your dogmatic assertions that it's connected to these people. He got one right. One would just seem like a complete, utterly not true. The other one, very questionable to almost not true. And then the third one, okay, relatively, that one seemed 100% factual. That's not how we do hermeneutics. The text clearly is describing a situation that occurred right then. So the lesson of Psalm 83 can't be there's a coming war. The lesson of Psalm 83 has to be these people crying out to God in a lament based off the situation that they were feeling, that they were experiencing. What can we learn from that? Now, I put forth some ideas and lessons in the message that I've been preaching on Psalm 83. You can go back and listen. This one is I don't get it. But I want you to go listen to everything. Make it your priority today. Go listen to everything they did on Psalm 83. Look, you can tell how short these messages are. They're only about 6 to 10 minutes long. You can fly through these things. You can just fly through them. You can finish them all today. I want someone to finish all 20 today, all right? And then email me telling me what you think of their 20 parts. And if there's something you're like, you've got to hear part 16, just tell me, okay, part 6, I don't even need the timestamp. We'll just review the entire part because I want to get, Well, one, I want you to hear their perspective. I want you to hear their perspective. I am grateful for their perspective because it's challenging me to spend more time on Psalm 83 than I've ever considered in my entire life. And I've worked on Psalm 83 multiple times in different like educational situations, seminary, Bible college, Bible institutes. But I don't think I've ever spent this much time. So I'm grateful for their perspective because it's challenging us. I'm just confused by the hermeneutical approach. I just don't get it from a hermeneutical perspective. And that's okay. We can disagree. You, as the listener, you benefit because you get to hear two radically different approaches. So this is a positive thing. I don't want it to be a negative thing, all right? So here's what you need to do. Look up Psalm 83, the coming Middle East war, and you should be able to, that'll get you to the series, all right? If you cannot find the series, in fact, what I will try to do is I can share the entire series. I will send out a link. To the entire series. If you have the Church One app. If you don't have the Church One app, I really don't know why. It's really kind of offensive. Why wouldn't you download the Church One app? Because then you can listen to me live and you can get notifications sent out when I send out notifications, and you'll know whenever I upload new stuff. All right. So go to the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, do a search for Church, O-N-E, Church, O-N-E. Once you download the app, do a search for Theology Central. Make us your chosen broadcaster. Boom! You now have the Theology Central app, and you'll get the notification in just a few minutes with a link to the series that we are referring to. All right. You also want the Sermons 2.0 app downloaded. All right. You definitely want that app as well. Sermons 2.0 and Church One. You want both of them. All right. So I will do that. And then I want you to go listen to them all. I really do. Look, this is not one of the situations like, I think I'm better than them. I just don't understand their perspective. I don't get it. But I want you to hear their perspective. Because then hopefully it will challenge you to do your own study and your own research. All right. So far, any of the sermons we listened to on Psalm 83, they were all maddening. Kind of like the same thing that's happening with Joshua 1:8. And these are hermeneutical disputes. These are hermeneutical disagreements. All right. It's nothing personal. It's hermeneutical issues. And that's okay. The way you have hermeneutic, like one of the best parts of even a hermeneutics class is where you struggle with, okay, well, they interpret it this way. Well, why should we interpret it this way? Okay, what's our steps? What's our methods we're going to use? Those discussions about hermeneutics comparing and contrasting approaches sometimes is the most beneficial. So you're getting to hear, like, here's how one side handled Psalm 83. Here's how another side. You may have a completely different hermeneutic and a different approach. I would love to hear your approach if you want to share it. You can email me, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. And once again, we've gone over an hour. So hopefully you benefit all the work. Look, trust me, I didn't want to necessarily do that, but I just felt like if they're continuing to work on the series, I want people to know, look, they've done 20 parts. They're putting in the work. I want that work to be listened to. I want you to go listen to their hermeneutical work. I really do. I'm not being sarcastic. I obviously am conflicted. I don't understand, but that's okay. That's okay. I want their work to be heard. I want their work to be listened to. So go download all 20. And if you're driving around today, just go through one after another. Just start with part 1 and just go through them all. Part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6. And if you're listening to them today, keep giving me updates. You're in part 1, you're part 4, part 5. Where are you at? What are you hearing? Give me minute by minute update. Be my reporter. All right. Report your progress through this series because, I'm just not understanding. From all my study in hermeneutics, I am just baffled on this. I'm baffled at all the preachers who try to make this something other than Psalm 83. Like, why does it have to be anything other than Asaph, the worship leader, composed a lament to express the fear, concern, and worry, and doubt, and panic of the people during his time? The end. That seems so simple. I don't know. Thanks for listening. Everyone have a great day. Go listen. I'll send the link out in just a minute. All right. God bless.